Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe. Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan Giri Govardhan. Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo, Jaya Om Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Puravrajak, Acharya, Asatar, Sata Sri Shriman. ISKCON BBT founder, Charles Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakahosh Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Dityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopana Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Brajamumi Namanam Ki Jai. Shri Namadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Lal Chal Jagannath Pur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. The most beautiful worship Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gauri Tai Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Going back to home, back to Godhead Ki Jai. ISKCON New York Yatra Ki Jai. Brihad Madanga Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, International Food for Life Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga, glory to Srila Prabhupada. So, two requests. One, can we have the big screen connected, please, to my computer so I can make a small presentation to devotees present? And the other request is, could we have an audience shift? It's a little disconcerting speaking out there and you're over here. So just face me. That way you don't have your back to Prabhupada. You can still see Lord Jagannath and you'll be able to see the deities when the curtains open. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Deving Saraswatim Yasam Tato Jayam Hadirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, let us offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God and Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, who is the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatittama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naisiki. By regularly attending classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam, by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service unto the personality of God, whose worship with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are celebrating the divine appearance of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And I selected a couple of verses to present. And then I also have a PDF of this year's BBT Vyasa Puja book. You'll see on the Vyasa-san there is a book entitled Vyasa Puja, but that book is an open book. Any proper disciple can submit an offering to that book. But separately, this began maybe 5-6 years ago. But traditionally, the Vyasa Puja book is the one presented or produced by the North American BBT. which, as many of you know, is my main service, is working or serving at the North American BBT. So for many years, this Vyasa Puja book, which I will show in a little while, was produced by myself and Javida Prabhu. Javida Prabhu did all the editing, and I did all the design, production, and print buying for that book. But in the interest or the mood of succession planning, because all of Prabhupada's disciples, Prabhupada left this world in 1977. So, almost 50 years ago, right? So, even the youngest Prabhupada disciple at the time was about maybe 15 years old. So even the youngest Prabhupada disciple now is 65 years old. What to speak of persons like myself, I'll be 73 in October, and then they're older than myself. The oldest living Prabhupada disciple, not the oldest by initiation, because I was already, I think, twice initiated when he got initiated, was Amalabhakta Swami Maharaj. He was initiated in 76. I got my second initiation in 76 at the Mayapur Festival. Anyway, he's exactly 20 years older than me, so we're both born in October. So he'll be 93 in October. So he's the oldest living Prabhupada disciple. But there are others who were associating with Prabhupada before there was an ISKCON, like Mukunda Maharaj. So he's, I think, 10 years younger. I think he's 83 or maybe 85 this year. I don't remember exactly his birthday. So like that, all of us are going to be departing from this planet. Those who are still here will depart from this planet in very little time. So in the interest of succession planning, we passed over the Vyasa Puja book production to a younger team. So again, I'll show you that book later on. But I'm going to start by, we'll recite together a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. I selected first canto, chapter 1, text 22. A verse which some of you may be familiar with. Can you see clearly, or should I make it a little bigger? I can enlarge it just a little more. How's that? All right, so we'll recite this verse, and then we'll say a few words. Twang sandarshito dhatra tustarang nishtitir satam kaling sattva harang pungsam karnadhara evarnavam twang sandarshito dhatra dustarang nishtitir satam kaling sattva harang pungsam karnadhara evarnavam twang sandarshito dhatra dustarang nishtitir shatam kaling sattva harang pungsam karnadhara evarnavam. Karnadhara evarnavam twang sandarshito dhatra dustarang nishtitir shatam kaling sattva harang pungsam karnadhara evarnavam. Tangnak Sandarshito Datra Dushtarang Nishtitir Satam Ayana Govinda Ki Jai Kaling Sattva Pungsa Karnadhar Evarnavam Tangnak Sandarshito Datra Dushtarang Nishtitir Satam Kaling Sattaharang Pungsa Karnadhar Evarnavam. So yeah, you should get into the habit of reciting the verse. When Prabhupada was here, if you hear some of the original class recordings, you'd have like 20 men chant and then 5 or 6 ladies chant like that. So repetition is the mother of learning. The more we hear these, and you don't even have to understand. So anyone who is expecting perfection in the material world is living in a fool's paradise, because Murphy is always at work. All right, so let us do the synonyms. Tvam, your goodness. Naha, unto us. Sandarshitaha, meeting. Dhatra, by providence. Dustaram, insurmountable. Nistitir Shatam, for those desiring to cross over. Kalim, the age of Kali. Sattvaharam, that which deteriorates the good qualities. Pungsam, of a man. Karnadara, captain. Iva, as. Arnavam, the ocean. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. We think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as the captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being. Please repeat. We think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being. So, Srila Prabhupada's purport for this verse: the age of Kali is very dangerous for the human being. Human life is simply meant for self-realization, but due to this dangerous age, men have completely forgotten the aim of life. In this age, the lifespan will gradually decrease. People will gradually lose their memory, finer sentiments, strength, and better qualities. A list of the anomalies for this age is given in the 12th canto of this work. And so, this age is very difficult for those who want to utilize this life for self-realization. The people are so busy with sense gratification that they completely forget about self-realization. Out of madness, they frankly say that there is no need for self-realization, because they do not realize that this brief life is but a moment on our great journey towards self-realization. The whole system of education is geared to sense gratification. And if a learned man thinks it over, he sees that the children of this age are being intentionally sent to the slaughterhouses of so-called education. Learned men, therefore, must be cautious of this age. And if they at all want to cross over the dangerous age of Kali, they must follow the footsteps of the sages of Naimisharanya and accept Sri Sutta Goswami or his bona fide representative as the captain of the ship. The ship is a message of Lord Sri Krishna in the shape of Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarine Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shapitang Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandeyahang Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishyavangsha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vansha Kalpaturubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Mevacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasade Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So first of all, I want to congratulate you for surviving one of the most difficult aspects of sadhana in ISKCON, the Janmashtami Vyasa Puja double header. First of all, on Janmashtami, if you're older than 14 years old, you should fast. I hear devotees making all kinds of excuses, but Srila Rupa Goswami says, observing these festivals, like Janmashtami, and observing Ekadashi twice a month, these are the drivers or one of the aspects that drive us towards pure devotional service. So we shouldn't be eager to make excuses why we can't fast all day on Janmashtami or why we can't observe Ekadashi. This is not acceptable. Rupa Goswami also says, Ado Gurvarshayam. The very first aspect of Bhakti Yoga is to accept a spiritual master. So, we're all here because we have already or are in the process of accepting a spiritual master. Now, in my case, I've accepted His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, as my spiritual master, captain of the ship. But I have to admit, that was not the goal of life. I've told this story many times. I was a college student in the university, just a few blocks away from here, Polytechnic Institute. I just finished my third year of studying civil engineering. Walking down J Street, I saw Brahmachari at a book table and got just a little pamphlet, Krishna the Reservoir of Pleasure. So this is the potency of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He came to America in 1965, established his International Society for Krishna Consciousness right here in New York in 66. So by the time I joined in 73, this was already a 7-year-old movement, which in terms of spiritual movements means still an infant. But because the captain of the ship, the founder of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, is a pure devotee of Krishna, then the potency to expand Krishna consciousness was invested in him. Sampradaya vihinam ye mantra se nishpalam spriham. It is stated that if you don't get your mantra or your spiritual knowledge in a bona fide sampradaya, then it is whatever you think you've learned is useless. You have to be connected to sampradaya. So Srila Prabhupada is connected to the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So when we connect to him, the knowledge that we're getting is genuine and potent, as long as we follow his instructions given in that Vedic presentation. So Srila Prabhupada by 73 had inspired enough followers, many already initiated, to go out in the world and spread this knowledge. And we're supposed to do that continuously, not that it happened when Prabhupada was here and now we just sit back. Oh no, Prabhupada did say, if you can't expand the movement, then at least maintain what I've given you. So those of you young men sitting here in front of me, this is your task. Like I said, all the Prabhupada disciples, a day will come when the very last Prabhupada disciple leaves this planet, which means it will be, it's already transitioning. I would say right now, the vast majority, there are more than 600 temples of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness all around the world. And the vast majority of them are already being, the administrative heads are second generation. There are only a handful where you have a first generation disciple of Prabhupada managing like here in New York, Hansa Rupa Prabhu. So the transition is well underway, even at the GBC level. There are already second generation devotees who have become GBC members. And this is Prabhupada's desire. It was not a one-off. Just like the Gaudiya Math that Prabhupada joined, Prabhupada appeared in this world in 1896. And he noted on several occasions that that was the year when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent his book, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Life and Precepts. He sent to different universities and spiritual organizations around the world, including McGill University in Canada, where one of Prabhupada's disciples discovered that book. So Prabhupada noted that this was the beginning of the modern Krishna consciousness movement in terms of international preaching. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent that book around the world, and his son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, took up the mantle of preaching in India and inspiring others to preach internationally. First, he sent some of his sannyas disciples to London, because India at the time was a British protectorate or part of the British Empire. So it was, you could say, a predictable move to try to inculcate this Vedic knowledge into the so-called rulers of India. But this knowledge, as Prabhupada said, is not meant just for Indians. The Spirit Soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is not Indian. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the source of everything and everyone. So he's not meant just, knowledge of Krishna is not meant to be kept just in India. So why the Indian connection? Of course, Krishna is independent, supremely independent, Swarat. He could have appeared anywhere. And he does appear anywhere and everywhere. But particularly on this planet, he has appeared incarnated in what we call the Indian subcontinent many times. Why? So Prabhupada said it's just like the sun. Why does the sun rise in the east? Why not the west or the north or the south? It's just by divine arrangement. But the sunlight is spread everywhere. It's not that the sunlight, because the sun rises in the east and the light only stays in the east. No. By, again, divine arrangement, everyone benefits at some point at least, on this planet from the sunshine. Even you go to the farthest or northernmost countries in the world, like I've been to Scandinavia, Sweden, Denmark, Norway. I have not been to Finland yet, but in those countries, because of the way the Earth rotates, for practically 6 months of the year it is dark. But still, at a certain point of the year, the sun rises there, and everybody benefits from the sunshine. So similarly, although Krishna appears to incarnate primarily in India, the knowledge of Krishna is not meant just for Indians. It's meant for everyone. So taking that to heart, Srila Prabhupada brought this Vedic wisdom on the request of his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, to the Western countries. So we'll just touch on a few points of this purport, and then we'll speak on another verse, and then I'll read a few of the offerings from this year's BBT Vyasa Puja book. So we're living in the age of Kali. Do we agree with this first statement? It's a very dangerous time for human beings. And that danger is not just that you may walk out the door and somebody may put a gun in your back and take your iPhone. No. It's dangerous, as Prabhupada is pointing out here, because the goal of human life becomes covered over. There are supposedly more than 8 billion human beings on this planet. And unfortunately, the vast majority, when they wake up every day, they have no spiritual aspirations. Just to survive the day, many people, just to survive, finding something to eat, some clean water to drink. That's a big accomplishment for a lot of people on this planet. Just to survive the attempts of your neighbors to kill you is a big accomplishment for many people on this planet. And for those who don't have to struggle so hard, like most people right here in New York, they're not struggling so hard. They have a roof over their head. Many of them, even amongst the poorer class, they have a car to drive, or at least a scooter to ride, something, some form of transportation. They have some means of livelihood. Again, most commonly we see around here on the streets how many guys are delivering. The delivery business has exploded over the last decade. And people feel fortunate to have a job. Riding a scooter or an electric bike, delivering something is a big thing. A lot of people around the world aspire to come to America just to do that, or to speak of higher forms of occupation, IT and medical profession. And so all around the world, people are struggling so much that they don't have time to think of spiritual advancement. They have no interest. Unfortunately, even those who are in the higher socioeconomic brackets, they also proclaim they have no time. They have no time. They think they're okay. But on Prabhupada's order, devotees go out to distribute books, and they are, by the prompting of the Super Soul, they usually come up with some way of at least breaking through this facade of being okay. Many book distributors say, no, you approach somebody and you try to give them okay. They say, I'm okay. And sometimes that can be baffling, but one of our long-time book distributors, disciple of Kriyananda Maharaj, you may have met, Vijay Prabhu, he's very smart because he's been out on the street distributing books for many years. So when they say, I'm okay, he said, but you could be better. And some of them get it. Yeah, you're right, I could be better. What are you pushing here? What are you giving me to make me better? So it's a fact. These books, which are the basis of our Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada said 4 things. Books are the basis. Preaching is essence. Yes? What's the third one? Come on. Purity is the force. And what is the 4th one? Books are the basis. Preaching is the essence. Purity is a force? Come on, I know you had a long night. Anyway, the fourth one is utility is the principle. So what does that mean? That means we're not, and Vaishnavas in general, are not hung up on formulas. This is the difference between a Vaishnava and a caste Brahmana. The Brahmanas, they're hung up on formulas. You have to do things precisely like this. Om, om, and fat, and throwing water this way, and if you don't do it properly. Vaishnavas are not hung up on formulas. The driving force for a Vaishnava is the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If Krishna is pleased, then we have accomplished our mission. And if Krishna is not pleased, in spite of your knowing how to chant so many mantras and throwing water this way and lighting fire that way, if Krishna is not pleased, and we have examples of that. I spoke on Balaram's appearance day, and we had that example of Maharshi and Sutta. He was very learned, very paka, but because he did not show respect to Lord Balaram, Balaram killed him. And then we have the example from the 10th canto of those Vedic Brahmanas, again, very expert, Om, and chanting mantras and lighting fire, but when Krishna sent his coward boyfriends to ask for something to eat, they chased them away. Come on, you boys, get out of here. We're doing something serious. But the wives of the Brahmanas, they recognized, because they were devotees. So again, we're not meant, yes, we should, as far as possible, follow the rules and regulations for doing everything properly, but utility is the principle. So sometimes you may have to cut a corner here or there to get something done, meaningful and on time. Just like today, there's this Independence Day parade we're supposed to attend. And I think it starts around noon. So if we, on the basis of doing something exactly paka, we're late, and that's not right. We're meant to preach. Preaching is the essence. So again, we may have to cut a corner here or there to be there on time and set up the cart. And so utility is the principle. We don't get hung up on formulas. But at the same time, we don't use that as an excuse for not following things properly. So Prabhupada showed, again, we're supposed to be Prabhupada Nugas. This is Prabhupada's movement. Sometimes people try to bring in ideas and the way somebody else, that's okay. If you want to follow, you do that. But Prabhupada joined his spiritual master's movement, the Gaudiya Math, and then he created his movement just at the right standard for the vast majority of people in the world to follow. In other words, again, not that you have to spend years learning how to, because even nowadays the so-called Brahmanas, they're not Brahmanas. A real Brahmana, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, whenever there's a yajna, there's a Brahmana specifically meant to light fire without fire, just by reciting mantras. Anybody here can do that? You recite the right mantra so, we don't make a show of being Vedic Brahmanas. No, we don't make a show like that. We reach for the bic and we light the fire. So that's what it means by utility is a principle. Rather than, yes, maybe somebody could be sent to the Himalayas and after 20, 30 years they can learn how to light fire without fire. But we don't have such time. As Prabhupada alluded to in this purport, not alluded to, directly referred to, and if you know the Bhagavatam, as you go along, you learn the different verses, you see that Prabhupada in his presentation is practically always paraphrasing a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in this verse, he says that people will gradually lose their memory, finer sentiments, strength. So this is directly a verse from the 12th canto. Tatas chanudinam dharma satyam socham shamadaya. Kalena balina raja nangshatyahu balang smritihi. So this is a verse that Prabhupada is paraphrasing here. Tatas cha anudinam. Day by day, these things will diminish. Tatas cha dharma. First one is dharma. Dharma, as Prabhupada said many times, is translated in the Western countries as religion. But there's a deeper meaning. Dharma is the constitutional situation of anything. And he always gave the example of water. The constitutional position of water is liquidity. That's the natural state of water. Now, unnaturally, if you freeze water, then it becomes ice. But that's not the natural state. The natural state of water is to be liquid. The natural constitutional state of sugar is to be sweet. If I give you a spoonful of something and say, this is sugar, and then you put it in your mouth, your mouth is burning on fire, and then that's not sugar. Sugar is supposed to be sweet. So similarly, the dharma, or the natural constitutional position of a living entity, is to be a servant of Krishna. Jivera Sarupahoi, Krishnera Nityadas. The Swarupa, or original form of the Jiva, Jivera Sarupahai, is Krishnera, of Krishna, Nitya, eternal, Das, servant. So this is and that's what we're striving to reawaken. That's what ultimately self-realization means. People have other ideas, this self-realization fellowship or this or that. People talk about self-realization, some people, but they have no real understanding of what is self-realization. Self-realization means to come back to the platform of acting, not just theoretically accepting yourself to be a servant of Krishna, but acting on that understanding at every moment, by thought, words, and deeds. And one who does that is liberated. Karmana manasagira. If by your activity, by your thoughts, and by your words, you engage in Krishna service, then you are jivan mukta. You're liberated even though you're still in a material body. So this is what we're striving for. That is real self-realization. Self-realization ultimately means God realization. If you realize God, then you automatically realize yourself. But many people, or some people, because they don't actually know what is God or don't actually accept that a God exists, but still they want self-realization. Because they think some or other it means becoming super conscious. Everybody's motivated by that. At least some people are motivated. They want to be super conscious. They're barely conscious, but they want to be super conscious. So we say yes, super consciousness is possible when you connect yourself completely to the super conscious, original, supreme personality of Godhead. Then by Krishna's will, even though we remain eternally part and parcel of Krishna, we can achieve amazing things, just like Srila Prabhupada did. Crossing the ocean at the age of 70, surviving heart attacks, so much inconvenience right here in New York City. I mean, the history is there. You can read in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. This is not ordinary. We should not take it as, oh yeah, okay. No, it is amazing. Amazing. I gave a class recently in Alatra where I was reminding devotees of this, that Prabhupada arrived in 65 and left in 77. So in little less than 13 years, look at what Prabhupada accomplished. So I invited the audience to think of your own life, whatever age you are right now. Think of any 13-year segment, the first 13 years, the second 13 years, or if in my case now I'm almost 73, the last 13 years from 60 to 73. Think of any 13-year segment of your life. What did you accomplish that's actually notable in those 13 years? You graduated from high school. So many millions of people, billions of people have graduated from high school. You graduated from college. So many millions and billions of people have graduated from college. What have you achieved in 13 years that's in any way comparable to what Prabhupada did in 13 years? So we should never lose sight of that we're not dealing with an ordinary person, not even an ordinary spiritual master. Prabhupada, we refer to as more Senapati Bhakta, that spiritual general that was sent by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to push on the Krishna consciousness movement, which, because we're living in the material world, goes through periods of ups and downs. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself inaugurated this, what we would consider the modern Krishna consciousness movement, preaching Srimad Bhagavatam, going out in the streets and chanting. The Lord himself, in his incarnation as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, set the stage. But over time, it became covered. So by the time Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur appeared in this world, Vaishnavism, true Krishna consciousness had been covered. So he is credited with reviving the proper understanding of what it means to be a devotee of Krishna, a Vaishnava. And then his son took up the mantle and then passed it on to Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada did what they didn't do. He took it outside of India, all around the world. Prabhupada traveled around the world practically every year after his movement got going. So we are here today on this Vyasa Puja to glorify Srila Prabhupada. Rightfully so. It's not just sentiment. It's not that we're all, because we're in this line, we feel duty bound to. No. Anyone with a little bit of intelligence, a little bit of fortune, and we've seen that right now, not just in India, but around the world. People, when they stumble across the Krishna consciousness movement and they start to understand who is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, they're mind blown. It's mind blowing what Prabhupada did. So what to speak of ourselves, who are supposedly Prabhupada Nugas, we should always keep prominent in our consciousness his accomplishments, what he did in such a short period of time. So that verse, as Prabhupada is referring to, this is this is an impetus for taking this movement seriously, because the age of Kali, as Prabhupada says, it's a horrible age. And it's an age in which self-realization is extremely difficult. Krishna consciousness is difficult because the entire social body is set up in such a way that people are practically forced to be Krishna unconscious. As Prabhupada said, he referred to education. That children of this age are being intentionally sent to the slaughterhouses of so-called education. Now, this is a term that goes all the way back to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He said this modern education it's a slaughterhouse. And I've mentioned this maybe on a couple of occasions, but when I was in San Diego in the early 90s, I made this reference in a class. I referred to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying, and Prabhupada also supporting, that modern education is a slaughterhouse. And one devotee, Mataji, not to say that it's because she was a Mataji, but anyway, this Mataji chastised me heavily. How can you say that? Children have to grow up and have a profession. We have to send them to school. So I didn't want to get into an argument. But shortly thereafter was the very first prominent mass murder in a school, the Columbine incident, where it became understood by everyone that it is actually not just theoretically, not just modern educational institutions are factually slaughterhouses where people go because they're so wound up, they're so mad that young children, we're talking teenagers, will get a gun and go to school and shoot their classmates, shoot their teachers. And after that, that was the first prominent one. After that, practically regularly, practically every month, somewhere, not just in America, around the world it happens. Recently in Germany and not so long ago in Norway, all around the world, because in Kali Yuga, people are mad. There are 6 enemies of the jiva in conditioned life. But Jayadvaita Maharaj was mentioning in his last class, he referred to those. Kam, Krodlo, Moha, Maya, and Matsarya. These are the 6 enemies of the living entity in conditioned life. So kam, lust. Lust, krodha, because lust is never satisfied, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that when lust is not satisfied, it degenerates into anger, krodha. Kama, krodha, lobha, greediness. Greediness. As living entities in human bodies, our actual needs are not that great. Enough room to lie down at night to take rest, enough clothing to cover the body nicely, enough food to maintain the body nicely. That's all we really need. But the wants are unlimited. I want, I want. I already have, but I want more. Up to and including, I want to engage others in my service. Forget about serving, even serving God. I want to make you my servant. I want you to do what I tell you to do. That's how audacious greediness is. You have your own existence. I have my own existence. I don't really, or should not really, demand anything of you, and you should not demand anything of me. But people are so greedy that they actively try to engage other living entities in their service instead of encouraging them to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, kam, krodha, lobha. Moha. Moha means illusion. Because I'm illusion to think that I am numero uno, then I act in that way. Yeah, I'm a human, you're a human, but I'm more important than you. Is that factual? No. No. In the grand scheme of things, every single living entity is the same. Same potential. Same importance as part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm no more important than you. You're no more important than the person next to you. Every one of us is meant to serve Krishna. Same potential is there. So, kam, krodha, moha. But due to illusion, we think. We allow the material energy personified to convince us that we're important than others. We're more important than others. It's not a fact. Moha, mada, madness. When the influence of the material energy becomes so strong and we can't fulfill our material desires, we can't establish our dominance over others, we go mad. Our desire to dominate others, we go mad. Moha, mada, matsarya, envy. Envy means you have a right to enjoy your possessions. God-given. Everybody's been given a certain quota that is supposed to be used in service to God. But out of envy, I want to take what you have. I already have my quota, but out of envy, I don't want you to enjoy what's rightfully yours. I want to take it for my enjoyment. That's envy. So these are the 6 enemies of the living entity in conditioned life. And the only way to escape the influence of those 6 enemies is to become Krishna conscious, which begins, as we said in the beginning of this presentation, Ado Guvashaya. Not that we say, Srila Rupa Goswami says. The very first step on this journey of coming back to sanity, coming back to our real identity as eternal servants of Krishna, is to take shelter of a spiritual master. So, some of you here, how many of you are initiated already? Put your hand up. Okay, so the vast majority of those of you in the room right now are not initiated. So you have to take this seriously. This human life, as that verse says, Tatascha Anurinam Dharma, Satyam, truthfulness, Socham, cleanliness, Kshama, mercy, tolerance, Daya, mercy. Nang Satya, Kalina Balina Rajan. These things are deteriorating by the deleterious effects of the age of Kali. Kalina and Balina, the strength. It's a very powerful force that you can't resist on your own. Kalina Balina Rajan. Nang Chatyahur Balang Smritihi. Nang Shati Ayu, just like we have Ayurveda, practices that enhance and increase life. So the force of Kali makes life diminish. So in Kali Yuga, 100 years is supposed to be kind of the outside, but most people don't make it there. My father passed away at 72. My mother passed away at 87. I'll be 73 in October. So if I make it to as long as my mother, that's grand. People already think if you're 70s, you're old. But 7 times 10, that's not a very long time. But because we're conditioned by the age of Kali, we're thinking 70s old, 80s old, 90, like Amalabhakta Swami, like I mentioned, he'll be 93 in October. Ooh, old. Now, first of all, age is a feature of this material body. As spirit souls, we are ageless. We have no age. As Krishna says in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Natvaevaham jatanasam natangne me janaripa. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, Arjuna, nor any of these kings, which by extension means all of us. There was never a time we did not exist. We're existing now, nor in the future will there be non-existent. So that's what eternal means. Eternal means always existed in the past, existing now, and will always exist in the future. So we're all eternal. And that's why we cannot be satisfied in this temporary material atmosphere, no matter what we get. We cannot be satisfied. So that should be a wake-up call to anybody who's a little bit intelligent. Yes, it doesn't matter how much I acquire in terms of money, prestige, so-called power. It's all temporary. It's going to be cut at some point. And not everybody even makes it to the 70s, 80s, what to speak of 90s. We know every day so many young people are dying. So many people die right after birth. So many people are killed in the womb because of ignorance, viciousness born of ignorance. A woman becomes pregnant. I don't want this pregnancy. I don't want this child. And they kill the child in the womb. So the material world in general is a killing field. If you survive the period in the mother's womb, every single day thereafter that you make it is actually a miracle. It's actually miraculous that children make it, that infants make it to childhood. Because there's so many things just at home that can kill them. The electrical outlet, mother turns her back on the child. So many industrial poisons that they keep in the kitchen, usually under the sink. Clorox and this and that. So many things are there that can cut life short. So we're all adults here. We've made it to adulthood. We should be very thankful to the Supreme Lord that we made it this far. But take advantage. Take advantage of whatever time is left to really, really seriously consider what should I do with my remaining time, which is not guaranteed. Could end today. Not so long ago, there was another little Rath Yatra in Brooklyn that I attended with Hansarupa. So while we're going down the street, there was one police car leading the parade. And there was, because of that, traffic was backed up. And there was one crazy guy I saw. He was coming along and he couldn't get around the devotees, so he made a sharp right turn, bang! He hit into another car. And he backed up with his front of his car was all banged up, and he came zooming and just barely went around the devotees. And he went by the police car, and we told her what, it was a police woman driving. We told her what happened, so she abandoned the parade and took off after him. So that guy was so crazy, a lot of devotees could have died. He could have slammed right into the parade. So at any moment we can go. We should not think that just because we're chanting Hare Krishna, we're not going to leave this body. The day is going to come. So just before Prabhupada left this world, he said, Krishna is in complete control. That is Krishna consciousness. So we should always remember, we're not in control. The mayor of the city is not actually in control. The governor of the state is not actually in control. The president of the United States is not actually in control. The real controller of everything and everyone is Krishna. So in this age, the process of self-realization, God-realization, has been made very easy. Just chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'm just going to, as I promised, to show a few offerings from this year's BBT. Vyasa Puja book. Pancharanda Prabhu, did you get a copy of the North America BBT Vyasa Puja book? You didn't? Okay. So I have it in PDF form here. Okay, let's find this. So this is the cover of this year's North America BBT Vyasa Puja. The difference between the two, because like I said, on the Vyasa Sun right now, you'll see there's a Vyasa Puja book. That book is open to any proper disciple to send an offering. The North America BBT Vyasa Puja book is meant, otherwise it will be voluminous. It's meant for certain categories, like GBC members can send an offering, sannyasis can send an offering, gurus can send an offering. Each center in ISKCON can send an offering, and different ISKCON projects, they can send an offering. So that is the cover of this year's book. And then I'm going to, just like I said, read a few of the offerings. All right, so first I would like to read the meaning of Vyasa Puja. Today we celebrate Vyasa Puja, literally the worship of Srila Vyasadeva, the great sage who compiled the Vedas. We worship our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, as the divine representative of Vyasadeva, because from him we have received the Vedic knowledge by which we can attain eternal life. This liberating wisdom emanates from the Lord himself. Sarvasya chaham hridisani vishdo mataksmatir jnanam apohanam cha vedaishcha sarvar ahang eva vedyo vedantakrit vedavid eva chaham. Translation: I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. This is Bhagavad Gita 15:15. The Lord personally imparts the Vedic knowledge to Lord Brahma, who initiates our sampradaya. Yavanaham yata bhavo yadrupa gunakarmakaha tataiva tattva jnanam ashtute mad anugrahat. Translation: all of me, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. This is Bhagavatam 2:9-32. Brahma teaches that same Vedic knowledge to his son Narada, who in turn instructs his disciple Vyasadeva, from whom it descends in an unbroken line or parampara, as we were discussing earlier, eventually reaching Srila Prabhupada, to whom we offer our most profound adulation. Our debt to Srila Prabhupada and all the previous spiritual masters is incalculable. While instructing Srila Sanatana Goswami, Lord Chaitanya said, Krishna boli se jiva anadi bahirmukh, attaeva maya tare daya samsara dukh. Translation: forgetting Krishna, the living entity has been attracted by the external feature from time immemorial. Therefore, the illusory energy, Maya, gives him all kinds of misery in his material existence. So now we understand. When we are feeling miserable, don't blame your neighbor, don't blame. It is Maya who is inflicting those miseries to wake us up. That's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 21:17. We have been languishing in material existence, enduring all kinds of misery since time immemorial, which means nobody can calculate how long we have been entrapped. We can perhaps get some idea when we consider the current epoch. We learn from the Srimad Bhagavatam that the jivas are injected into the creation through the Lord's glance at the beginning of Brahma's life. Kalavritya tamayayang gunamayang adokshajaha purushena advabhutena viryam adhatta viryavan. So let's go. Translation: the Supreme Living Being in his feature as the Transcendental Purusha incarnation, who is the Lord's plenary expansion, impregnates the material nature of three modes, and thus by the influence of eternal time, the living entities appear. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:5-26. At the end of each of Brahma's days, when he sleeps and there is an annihilation, those souls who have not been liberated enter Lord Vishnu's body until the following creation in the next day of Brahma. So this is something that kind of plagued me as a young devotee. I wondered, we accept that the Supreme Lord is completely pure. That is one of the constitutional attributes of the Lord. He's completely pure. So if at the end of Lord Brahma's life, all the living entities are withdrawn within the body of Mahavishnu, who is completely So if at the end of Brahma's life we are absorbed into Mahavishnu, who is completely pure, I was wondering, how is it that we remain impure? Because we know Krishna is the supreme purifying agent. Anything that comes in, or anyone that comes in contact with Krishna becomes purified, not the opposite. Krishna is never affected by our impurity. Rather, when we come in contact with Krishna, we become purified. So I was wondering, how is it that we remain impure after being absorbed in the body of Vishnu? So the answer is free will. The Lord does not interfere with our free will. So if at the end of Lord Brahma's life, you are withdrawn in the body of Mahavishnu, he does not interfere with your free will. Whatever desires you have at that time remain, and you remain in a dormant state. That's called susupti. The dormant state where although you're eternally a conscious being, you are unconscious. Does anybody here remember being within the body of Mahavishnu? Or we don't remember. We are in this susupti state where we're alive, because we're always alive, we're eternal, but we're unconscious. It's compared to getting a general anesthetic. Anybody here ever? I have. I've had 2 operations that required general anesthesia. And you don't know what's going on. The surgeon is cutting and removing, and you have no idea. So that susupti is compared to that. You're alive, but completely out of it. You don't remember anything. And the Lord doesn't interfere with our free will. So when the next creation comes about, he again impregnates us into the material energy, and we pick up where we left off. So if at the end of Brahma's life you had a strong desire to be a basketball star, then you're given the opportunity. Okay, now you're in the material energy again. Now you can become a basketball star or whatever you deserve to be. If you were an ant, then you pick up again ant form and gradual evolution to the human form. So, Each of those days represents 1,000 cycles of the 4 yugas, equivalent to approximately 4 billion Earth years, with the ensuing nights being the same length. According to the Acharyas, Brahma has lived approximately half of his life, or around 50 of his years. So it appears we have been dwelling in this universe for over 150 trillion years. But we don't remember. We can barely remember exactly what happened yesterday, what to speak of 150 trillion years ago. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Sometimes people say like that. I don't remember any past life, so I don't believe in the past. No. As an adult, none of us, or maybe one small fraction of the population, remembers life within the womb of your mother. But that doesn't mean you weren't there. Obviously, you were in the womb of your mother. Just because you don't remember something doesn't mean it didn't happen. However, it is possible we came from another universe before that, where we would have remained for its entire duration. And it is not impossible that we lived through other creations before that. Time itself commences with the commencement of each universe, so we cannot even estimate how long we have been in material existence. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur sung that song, Anadi Karma Pale. Anadi means before the beginning of creation, we were already materially contaminated. All kinds of misery means every type of material body, from germs to gods, lowercase g, which means demigod. In our determined quest to find happiness separate from Krishna, we have tried everything possible repeatedly. Thus, we have suffered every imaginable agony, taking birth and dying countless times, repeatedly plunging into hell and experiencing an untold number of catastrophes as we endured the cosmic devastations at the end of each day of Brahma and even during those days. Sometimes growing tired of the futile attempt to satisfy our senses, we renounced everything and practiced austerity in the hope of achieving liberation. In this way, we might have achieved temporary respite from the furious storm of suffering, only to again return to it when we become jaded with the state of inertia. The enormity of our stubborn resistance to Krishna's will is indeed staggering. For endless eons, we have resolutely refused to accept his supreme position and our subordination as his servants, endeavoring to act as would-be lords ourselves. This has presented us with an insurmountable problem, as Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita. Daivyesha gunamayi mama maya taratjaya mamevaye papadyante mayam etang tarantite. Translation: This divine energy of mind, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Bhagavad Gita 7:14. Just as a side note, we are supposed to fast half day in commemoration of Srila Prabhupada's Vyas Puja. However, there has been a breakfast prepared for those who don't want to fast or feel they can't fast. And I was told to go a little beyond the normal time, just because there's so much we can say about Srila Prabhupada. And also, the next engagement is the Independence Parade, and some of us are going to leave at 10 o'clock to get there a little early. So, but if you have some duty to perform, I will not be offended if you have to leave. You have to do your duty. So, but in the meantime, I will continue, maybe for another 5-10 minutes. Until we surrender to Krishna, we must remain in the inescapable fortress of material existence. We cannot extract ourselves by any independent effort. We need the Lord's intervention. Lord Chaitanya told Sanatana Goswami, Maya Mugda Jivaranai Swatta Krishna Gyan Jivera Kripaya Kaila Krishna Veda Puran. Translation: the conditioned soul cannot revive his Krishna consciousness by his own effort. But out of causeless mercy, Lord Krishna compiled the Vedic literature and its supplements, the Puranas. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 21:22. In his purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada describes our awkward situation of entrapment in material consciousness, mistakenly thinking ourselves part of the material world and thereby undergoing the concomitant vicissitudes. We become the slaves of lust, greed, anger, and envy, as we were discussing, the 6 enemies of the conditioned soul. And when the inevitable results of that become too much to bear, we serve mental speculation. Atapi te deva padam buddhaya prasada leishanugrahita evahi janati tattam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko picharang vichinvan. Translation: my Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. This is Lord Brahma speaking, Bhagavatam 10:14-29. That mercy comes to us through Vyasadev's authorized representative, the spiritual master, whose guidance is essential. Again, the majority of you in this room indicated you were not yet initiated, so you have to take it seriously. You have to take shelter of a spiritual master and take guidance. Only by the Guru's grace can we comprehend Vedic truths, as the Upanishads say, Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tata gurau, tasyaite katita hyarta pakashante mahatmanaha. Translation: only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6:23. The Vedas themselves confirm this point, paraphrasing the words of the personified Vedas from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:87-33 in his Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, chapter 87. Srila Prabhupada writes, quote, the personified Vedas continued, Dear Lord, although great mystic yogis may have full control over the elephants of the mind and the hurricane of the senses, unless they take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, they fall victim to the material influence and are never successful in their attempts at self-realization. Such unguided persons are compared to merchants going to sea on a ship without a captain. By one's personal attempts, therefore, one cannot get free from the clutches of material nature. One has to accept a bona fide spiritual master and work according to his direction. Then it is possible to cross over the nescience of material conditions. We thus owe everything to Srila Prabhupada, the authorized representative of Vyasadeva. Without his grace, we would be rotting in this material world with no idea how to save ourselves, especially as we now find ourselves immersed in the darkness of Kali Yuga, where ignorance abounds. As the sages of Naimisharanya said to Sutta Goswami, this is a verse that we started out with, Tvam nak sandarshito datra dustarang nishtitir satam kaling sattaharang pungsam karnadhara ivardavam. Translation: we think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as the captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of a human being. 1:122, Srimad Bhagavatam. The spiritual master is the captain of the ship that sails us to freedom, rescuing us from a shoreless sea of suffering in which we have floundered for longer than we can even begin to imagine. Our debt to him and all his forebears is inestimable and can never be repaid. We therefore worship his lotus feet with utmost respect on the auspicious occasion of Vyasa Puja. So this meaning of Vyasa Puja was written by His Grace Krishna Dharma Das. So, as it is stated here, self-realization going back to God, that should be our goal. But there's a little test I like to do with myself, first of all, and other devotees. If today, Lord Govinda came to you personally and said, "My dear Sandesh, I am so pleased with you. I will take you back to Godhead today, right now. Let's go." Or substitute your own name. Would you say, "Yes, my Lord, I'm ready to go"? Would you? If Krishna came to you today? Or would we allow our minds to come up with so many reasons why we're not quite ready? "Yes, my Lord, thank you so much for the offer, but I have to do this and that and that." And that. This is madness. This proves, if we're honest, it proves that we're still mad. If God Himself comes and says, "Come with me now, back to home, back to Godhead," and we foolishly come up with so many, I have to take care of this, that, maybe next week. That is foolishness. And that is madness. And that plagues us. There is a story of Narad Muni. Narad Muni, as you know, he wanders all over the universe trying to deliver all the conditioned souls. So he came to the house of one Brahmana, knocked on the door. The Brahmana recognized Narad Muni, "Please come in." And he took care of him nicely, seated him. 3 things you should do when somebody comes to your door. Narad Muni was not invited, but he came. So when an uninvited guest comes to your abode, 3 things you should do. Invite them in, give them a place to sit, and some kind of refreshment. If all you have is water, give them some water. All right, so a seat, some kind of refreshment, and sweet words. "My dear so-and-so, Mataji, Prabhuji, thank you for coming to my home. You must be a little tired from your travels. Is there anything?" Some sweet words. And then only do you ask why they came. Nowadays, Kali Yuga has deteriorated, as it's stated, the finer sentiments of human beings so much. If somebody knocks on your door, you open it a little bit, and you see that it's somebody you don't know. You say, "Get out of here," or "What do you want?" Slam the door in their face. That is the influence of Kali. Real culture is, again, these 3 things. You invite them inside, give them a seat, some refreshment, sweet words, and then you ask, "Why have you come?" So anyway, Narad Muni came to this Brahmana. The Brahmana was sufficiently cultured. Then he invited him to come in, gave him a seat, some refreshment, sweet words. And then, so Narad Muni explained that you've been such a nice devotee, nice Brahmana, that I have come to take you back to Godhead. And the Brahmana said, no, I really appreciate the offer, but my youngest son is not yet married, my daughter is not married, my wife will kill me if I don't get them married. It's my duty as the head of the household. He gave so many excuses. So Narad Muni said, "Okay, I will come back in 1 year." So Narad Muni came back in 1 year, knocked on the door, and the only response was some barking, dog barking inside. So Narad Muni opens the door, because Narad Muni is Trikalaga, he knows, you can see. The Brahmana had died, and he became a dog. And that dog had now become the family guardian. The family had gone on some trip, but the dog was there to guard the house. So Narad Muni said, "I invited you a year ago to come back to Godhead, and you refused. Now you've assumed the body of a dog. I can take you back to Godhead." And the dog said, No, the family's not here. They left me to guard the house. I can't give up my duty to go. Like that. So we keep foolishly, crazily making every excuse why we can't, even though we say we have taken the Krishna consciousness to go back to Godhead, we make excuses. If God Himself, like I said, do this experiment every day. If Govinda came off the altar to your room or wherever you're staying and said, "I am ready to take you back to Godhead today," would you be ready? Would you say, "Yes, my dear Lord, let's go"? That is the litmus test for how serious we are and how crazy we still are. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Now we are, some of us, if not all of us, we're going to go to this Independence Day parade. And as Prabhu said, we are not declaring independence. We are declaring our dependence on Krishna. This is our position. People they get very excited. 4th of July, Independence Day here in America, or this Indian Independence Day, that Independence Day. Nobody's independent. We are all dependent on Krishna. And the sane person acknowledges that, my dear Lord, I am your eternal servitor. For so many lifetimes, I've been hanging out in this material world, being kicked like a football. Please bring me back to normal consciousness and engage me in your service. I am your eternally dependent servant. This is our mentality. So although we're going to an Independence Day parade, our aim is to give them literature, give them the holy name, which will prove to them that they are dependent. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai.